Hey everyone, welcome back to Intro to DJing, and in this video what I want to do is talk about the difference between cue play and cue stutter. This is a really quick video, but it's important to understand because you'll often see this setting on the CDJs as well, and I'll explain why I prefer cue stutter and not cue play. So basically the way it works is while you hold down the cue button, the track will play, and as soon as you release it, it'll jump back to wherever you set the cue point. So for instance, if I set the cue point here, you press it once, it'll set the button. While you hold it down, it'll play, and then you release it and it'll jump back. So if you actually want to continue playing, you hold down cue and you press play. Similarly, this is called cue stutter behavior, and it'll basically stutter the track, and when you release it, it'll jump back. That's kind of the stuttering part, because you could basically go, I play it here, something like that, which is really nice. Now, when it comes to the hot cues, which right now I'm basically looking at my hot cue buttons, there is a similar thing. There is cue stutter, hot cue stutter, which means it'll behave very similarly to the cue button. You hold it down, and if you want to continue playing the track, you have to press the pad and then press play, and then it'll work. Alternatively, in settings, if we go to settings here in Virtual DJ, and most DJ applications will have this, there is going to be cue stutter, so hot cue mode. So hot cue play, what happens is you press the hot cue and the track will just start playing. You don't have to press play. The reason I don't like this is I often use the hot cue as a lineup or a mix in point. And if you do this, you don't want the track doing this. Otherwise, then you have to stop the track and roll it back. So rather than that, if you're in cue stutter mode, you just press the hot cue, it'll jump to that point, and then when you're ready to play the track, boom, you press play. So hopefully this explains the difference between cue stutter and cue play. If you're using your cue points as mix in and mix out points like I did, and using them to jump around the track, I think it's much better to use cue stutter. Now, one thing that is worth mentioning is if your track is playing, is not stopped, but it is playing, basically pressing a cue will jump to that cue and the track will continue playing. So this is not that this is different than, cue stutter versus cue play. It's because the track is already playing, hitting that cue button is going to jump to that particular hot cue. Notice how that doesn't work for the overall cue button though. That's usually the case. You press play and you press the cue button, it's going to jump back to where the cue that you set was and stop the track. So that's where the cue button and your hot cue behavior is going to be slightly different. But once again, I still recommend having your hot cues in cue stutter mode, not cue play mode. So hopefully that will explain the difference there. Check on your own DJ software. Some don't even have this option. For instance, I don't think Tractor, you can even set it to cue play. It's always going to be cue stutter. But something like the CDJs, be sure you're aware of this, because the first time I played on CDJs, I was used to doing cue stutter, and I had to go in the settings and find this, and not always the best option when you're in the middle of a gig. So hopefully you understand, and be sure to use that setting accordingly.